You're going to die if you move again. The voice was unfamiliar, low and calm, carrying the quiet authority of someone who had already decided the outcome of the situation. It reached her through the fog of pain like a distant transmission struggling through a storm. The alien warrior's eyes snapped open. For a moment she didn't understand what she was seeing. The ceiling above her was not the cold metallic grid of a detention cell. It wasn't the sterile glow of a medical bay either. Instead, there were wooden beams, actual wood, aged and dark, lit by a single warm lamp that hummed softly with primitive human electronics. Her first instinct was to reach for the weapon that should have been attached to her gauntlet. Her arm moved 3 centimeters before a blade of pain shot through her body so violently that her breath left her in a sharp gasp. Across the room, the human leaned back slightly in his chair. "Yeah," he said dryly, "that's exactly what I warned you about." The alien stared at him. Her species had studied humans for decades through military reports and intelligence briefings, yet seeing one this close was strangely disorienting. Humans were smaller than the propaganda depicted, less monstrous, less dramatic. This one looked particularly unimpressive. He sat in a plain chair with one boot propped against the wall, sleeves rolled up to his elbows, a medical kit spread across a small table beside him. His dark hair was slightly messy, and the expression on his face suggested mild exhaustion rather than triumph over a captured enemy. Her luminous silver eyes narrowed. "Where am I?" she demanded, her voice sharp despite the weakness in her chest. The human glanced at her bandaged side. "In my house." The answer arrived so casually that she assumed she had misunderstood the translation. "You captured me," she said. "Nope, you are interrogating me." "Nope again." Her eyes flicked around the room. There were no restraints, no scanners, no guard drones hovering near the ceiling. Instead, there was a small stove quietly heating something that smelled surprisingly good. The human noticed her looking. "Soup," he said. "Before you ask, yes, it's safe for your biology, I checked." She blinked. "You checked." He lifted a small medical scanner from the table and wiggled it in the air. Battlefield medics learn a few tricks. That word caught her attention. Battlefield. Memory surged back all at once. The sky over the plains of Rithkar burning with orbital fire. Velarin strike carriers diving through the clouds like silver knives. Human artillery tearing through entire columns of armored walkers. She remembered charging forward with the elite spear battalion. She remembered the explosion. After that, darkness, her gaze snapped back to the human. "You are a soldier. Technically, you fought in the battle. Also technically," she stared harder. Every instinct drilled into her by the Velarin Imperial War Academy screamed that this situation made no sense. Humans did not rescue enemy soldiers. Humans especially did not bring them home. "You should have taken me prisoner," she said. The human shrugged. "Didn't feel like it." Her long ears twitched slightly, the subtle movement revealing irritation. "That is not how war works." "Sure it is," he said. "You shoot at people, people shoot back. Sometimes somebody drags someone off a battlefield because leaving them there feels unnecessary." She studied him carefully now. His uniform was real enough, standard human military fabric slightly burned along one sleeve. But there were strange inconsistencies. No rank insignia, no unit markings. Even the identification patch had been removed. That was unusual, extremely unusual. "You risked punishment by taking me," she said slowly. "Probably. You risked execution if your command discovers this." "Possible. And yet you still did it." The human finally looked directly at her. For the first time, she noticed something unsettling about his eyes. They weren't angry, they weren't curious, they were simply calm. Like a man who had already weighed the consequences and stopped caring about them. He leaned forward and picked up the bowl from the stove. "Eat," he said, handing it to her carefully. "Your body is still repairing tissue. That explosion did a number on you." She hesitated before taking it. Velarin warriors were trained to endure interrogation, torture, psychological warfare. They were not trained for soup. Suspicion crept into her voice. "You expect me to trust this? I expect you to be hungry." That was annoyingly accurate. She took a cautious sip. Warmth spread through her chest almost immediately. Her eyes widened a fraction. "It's good." The human grinned slightly. "Don't sound so surprised. Humans invented cooking." She watched him carefully over the edge of the bowl. "You are strangely relaxed for someone harboring an enemy combatant." He leaned back in his chair again. "Let me ask you something." She didn't answer. "What's your name?" Silence stretched between them. Velarin warriors did not give their names to enemy soldiers, not under any circumstances. He waited a few seconds, then he sighed. "All right," he said. "We'll do it the hard way." Her eyes narrowed. "You intend to interrogate me after all?" "No," he pointed casually at the bandage around her shoulder. "You're Velarin Imperial Guard." Her fingers froze around the bowl. "That armor plating is custom-grown," he continued. "Your species only gives it to high-ranking warriors." She said nothing. "And your eyes," he added thoughtfully. "That shade of silver usually means noble bloodline." Her pulse spiked. "How do you know that?" He shrugged. "I read. That information is restricted even within the Empire." "Yeah," he said casually. "Your Empire leaks a lot." She stared at him harder now. A simple human soldier should not know these things. A simple human soldier definitely should not speak about the Velarin Empire with that level of calm. "You still haven't told me your name," she said slowly. The human rubbed the back of his neck. "Right." He thought about it for a moment like someone deciding whether the effort was worth it. Then he said simply, "Daniel, just Daniel, no rank, no surname, nothing else." The alien warrior studied him in silence. Somewhere far above the quiet countryside house, the distant roar of ships passed through the clouds. Velarin patrol craft, searching the battlefield, searching for survivors, searching for her. Daniel stood up and walked toward the window, glancing briefly at the sky as faint blue light flickered through the clouds. "Good news," he said casually. She tensed. "What?" "Your people are looking for you." Her chest tightened. "And the bad news?" She asked carefully. He gave a small, amused smile. "They're looking in the wrong place." The alien warrior set the empty bowl down slowly, never taking her eyes off Daniel. "You are hiding me," she said. Daniel looked over his shoulder from the window. "Technically," he replied, "I'm letting you recover." "That is not the same thing. Feels pretty similar from my perspective." Outside, the distant thunder of engines rolled across the sky again, deeper this time. The sound vibrated faintly through the walls of the small house. The alien's ears twitched. "Velarin patrol carriers," she said quietly. Daniel nodded once. "3 of them." Her eyes narrowed. "You identified them by sound." "Lucky guess." She did not believe that for a second. Velarin patrol carriers used variable gravity engines that most species struggled to recognize. Even trained pilots sometimes misjudged them. Yet Daniel had answered instantly. Suspicion crept deeper into her voice. "You speak as though you have encountered them before." Daniel walked back toward the table and began cleaning the medical tools with steady, practiced movements. "I've encountered a lot of things." That was not an answer. It was the answer I'm offering. She leaned back carefully against the bed, studying him again. Everything about him felt wrong. Not threatening exactly, but incomplete. A soldier with no insignia. A battlefield medic with intelligence knowledge. A man living alone far from command lines during an interstellar war. "You live here alone?" she asked. "Yep. No command structure, no outpost, no defensive grid." "Correct." "That is strategically foolish." Daniel shrugged. "I like the quiet." Before she could respond, a sharp metallic chirp echoed from somewhere under the table. Daniel froze. For the first time since she had awakened, his relaxed posture disappeared. He reached down and pulled out a small device about the size of a hand communicator. Its surface flickered with shifting symbols, far more complex than standard human military encryption. The alien warrior immediately recognized the structure of the code. Her eyes widened. "That is not human encryption." Daniel glanced at her briefly. "Good eye." The device emitted another series of sharp tones. She strained slightly to see the symbols. Velarin language, official Velarin command encryption. "How do you have that?" she demanded. Daniel sighed softly. "Because," he said, "someone out there is having a very stressful day." He tapped the device. The projection expanded into a small holographic display above the table. A tall alien figure appeared, humanoid, elegant, with luminous blue skin and elongated ears like the warrior, though older and sharper in appearance. His silver eyes burned with controlled fury. The moment the projection stabilized, the alien commander spoke. "This is Velarin Search Command Vessel Kareth Prime. Unknown signal source. Identify yourself immediately." The warrior's breath caught. Commander Thurin, one of the highest-ranking officers in the Velarin Imperial Fleet. Daniel leaned against the table casually. "Good afternoon," he said. The commander's eyes narrowed. "A human." Daniel gave a small wave. That's usually how these conversations start. The commander ignored the remark. "You are transmitting on restricted Velarin command frequencies," he said coldly. "Explain." Daniel tilted his head slightly. "I borrowed the channel." "You do not borrow Imperial channels. Yet here we are." The alien warrior stared between them in disbelief. This human was speaking to a Velarin fleet commander, the same way someone might talk to a neighbor over a fence. Commander Thurin's voice hardened. "Human, our fleet is searching for a missing warrior. If you possess information, you will provide it immediately." Daniel glanced sideways toward the bed. The warrior's heart pounded. He could expose her right now, hand her over, end this strange situation instantly. Instead, Daniel looked back at the hologram. "What does she look like?" he asked. Commander Thurin's eyes sharpened suspiciously. "You already know." Daniel shrugged. "Humor me." The commander studied him for several long seconds. Then the hologram shifted. A full-body image appeared beside him, the alien warrior sitting in the bed, her armor, her silver eyes, her royal crest. Daniel looked at the image thoughtfully. "Huh," he said, the warrior almost choked. "That is me," she whispered. Daniel nodded casually. "Yeah." Commander Thurin continued speaking. "She is a warrior of extreme importance to the Velarin Empire. Any individual aiding in her recovery will be rewarded beyond measure." Daniel rubbed his chin. "What kind of reward are we talking about?" The warrior stared at him in shock. Commander Thurin's eyes narrowed further. "Name your request." Daniel considered this for a moment. Then he said casually, "End the war." The silence that followed was so heavy it almost felt physical. Even the faint hum of the house seemed to fade. Commander Thurin stared at him. "You believe you are amusing." "Not really. You ask the Velarin Empire to abandon a war across 12 star systems, in exchange for returning one soldier." Daniel gestured toward the hologram. "You called her extremely important." The commander's voice dropped. "You do not understand what you are interfering with, human." Daniel smiled faintly. "That's possible." The alien warrior finally spoke. "Commander." Both figures turned toward her. Commander Thurin froze. The moment he saw her alive, the fury in his expression shattered into visible relief. "Princess." The word echoed through the room. Daniel blinked once, then he slowly looked back at the alien sitting on his bed. "Princess?" he repeated. The warrior sighed quietly. "Yes." Daniel scratched the side of his head. "Well," he muttered, "that explains a few things." Commander Thurin's gaze snapped back to Daniel. "Human," he said carefully, "you will return her immediately." Daniel looked between them. Then he glanced toward the window again where distant ships moved across the clouds. "See," he said calmly, "that's where things get complicated." The commander's voice hardened. "Explain." Daniel crossed his arms. "Because if I hand her back right now." He looked at the princess. "The war continues." The room fell silent again. And for the first time since waking up, the alien princess realized something deeply unsettling. Daniel wasn't negotiating. He was deciding. Commander Thurin's image flickered slightly as the signal stabilized again, but the tension in the room did not. "You are not in a position to make demands," the Velarin commander said slowly. Daniel leaned against the table, arms folded, as if they were discussing the weather instead of the fate of two civilizations. "That depends on how badly you want your princess back." The alien princess closed her eyes for a brief moment. Princess, she had hidden that truth from nearly everyone in the Imperial fleet when she insisted on joining the battlefield. Only the highest command knew her identity. And now a human, an ordinary, quiet human living in a wooden house on a remote world, had accidentally become the most dangerous variable in the war. Commander Thurin spoke again, his voice colder. "You assume we will negotiate with you." Daniel shrugged. "I assume you'll listen." The commander's luminous eyes burned with suspicion. "You are a single human soldier." Daniel tilted his head slightly. "Technically." The princess watched him carefully. That word again. Technically, something about the way he used it felt deliberate. "You have no fleet," Thurin continued. Daniel said nothing. "You have no army." Silence. "You have no authority in human command." Daniel rubbed the back of his neck. "That one's debatable." The commander's expression darkened. Before he could respond, another voice suddenly broke into the communication channel. "Commander Thurin, we are detecting unauthorized human signal interference across our orbital network." Another Velarin officer appeared beside him in the projection, tall, pale blue skin glowing faintly with agitation. "This signal is spreading through multiple relay nodes." Thurin turned sharply. "What?" The officer hesitated. It appears someone is accessing both Velarin and human communication channels simultaneously. Daniel coughed softly. The princess stared at him. "You did that?" she said quietly. He looked mildly embarrassed. "Maybe." Commander Thurin's voice rose. "Human, what have you done?" Daniel stepped forward and tapped the small device again. Suddenly the hologram expanded. The small room filled with dozens of projection windows. Velarin warships, human command stations, interstellar diplomatic relays, all connected, all watching. The princess's breath caught. "You opened a live broadcast." Daniel nodded, seemed efficient. Thurin's voice thundered through the network. "Terminate this signal immediately." But it was too late. Across the projections, alien admirals, human generals, and diplomatic observers from half a dozen neutral systems now stared into the quiet wooden house. And at the human standing calmly in the middle of it, one of the Velarin officers whispered in shock, "That's him." Another voice from a human command station followed. "Is that Daniel Carter?" The princess looked at him sharply. "Carter." Daniel sighed. "Ah." Thurin's eyes widened as realization struck. For the first time since the call began, the Velarin commander looked unsettled. "You," Thurin said slowly. Daniel gave a small, awkward wave to the gathering of fleets watching the transmission. "Hi." A human admiral appeared in one of the windows, his expression somewhere between panic and disbelief. "Carter," the admiral barked, "what in God's name are you doing?" Daniel glanced at him, "Solving a problem. You're a strategist, not a diplomat." "Today I'm both." The princess stared at him. Strategist. The word echoed through her mind. Fragments of intelligence reports surfaced from memory. A human military architect. A mind responsible for turning several losing battles into devastating victories. A ghost in Velarin war briefings, a man the Empire had been trying to identify for years. Her silver eyes widened. "You," she whispered. Daniel gave her a sheepish smile. "Hi again." Commander Thurin spoke, his voice tight. "You are the human strategist known as Carter." Daniel shrugged. "That's what people keep calling me. You orchestrated the fall of the Carthos fleet. Technically, you predicted the collapse of our eastern supply corridor. Also technically, the room fell silent. Across the projections, alien officers stared at him with a mix of disbelief and reluctant admiration. The princess looked at the quiet man who had cooked soup for her 2 days ago. "You carried me off a battlefield," she said slowly. Daniel nodded. "Yes." "You stitched my wounds." "Yes." "You let me sleep in your house." "Yes." She stared at him. "You knew who I was." Daniel scratched his head. "Not immediately." The princess let out a quiet laugh despite the tension. Of all the absurd moments in her life as a royal heir of the Velarin Empire, this one was by far the strangest. Commander Thurin's voice cut through the moment. "Carter," he said, "if you harm the princess." Daniel raised a hand. "No one's harming anyone." The commander narrowed his eyes. "Then explain your objective." Daniel looked around at the dozens of watching faces, human and alien alike. Then he gestured toward the princess. "Your empire wants her alive," he said. Thurin nodded once. "Yes. Human command wants this war to end." The human admiral sighed. "Very much so." Daniel leaned back against the table again. "So here's the deal." Every projection leaned forward. "The Velarin princess survives a battle," Daniel continued. "But instead of dying or being captured, she wakes up in the home of the human strategist responsible for half your military disasters." Thurin's expression darkened. Daniel continued calmly. "And that strategist lets her go." The princess's heart skipped. Thurin frowned. "You expect us to believe that act of mercy changes anything?" Daniel looked at the princess, then back at the fleets. "No," he said, "I expect it to change everything." The princess slowly stood from the bed despite the pain in her side. Every eye across the interstellar broadcast turned toward her. She stepped beside Daniel. Her silver eyes glowed softly in the warm light of the small human house. For a moment she remembered the battlefield, the fire, the hatred, everything she had been taught about humans. Then she remembered waking up here. Soup, quiet conversation. Mercy, she looked directly into the projection of Commander Thurin. "Commander," she said, his expression softened immediately. "Princess." She took a breath. "This human saved my life when he had every reason not to." Thurin said nothing. She continued, "If the architect of humanity's war effort can choose mercy." Her gaze hardened slightly. "Then so can we." Silence spread across the fleets. Even the human admiral stopped arguing. Daniel looked at her with quiet curiosity. The princess straightened her posture. For the first time in the entire broadcast, she spoke not as a soldier, but as royal blood. "I am Princess Erin of the Velarin Imperial Line," she declared. Across the projections, Velarin officers bowed their heads. "And I formally request the Velarin Empire enter immediate negotiations with humanity." Commander Thurin stared at her. "Princess, the Council." "Will listen," she said calmly. Thurin looked at Daniel, then back at her. Finally, he exhaled slowly. "Understood." Across the broadcast network, voices erupted. Orders, questions, arguments. The war had just changed direction in a single moment. Daniel leaned quietly against the table again, watching the chaos unfold. The princess glanced at him. "You planned this," she said softly. Daniel thought about it. Then he shrugged. "Technically, I just carried someone off a battlefield." She smiled faintly. Outside the small house, the warships in orbit slowly began to reposition. Not for battle, for negotiation. And for the first time since the war began, the stars above the quiet countryside were silent.